Good evening, and welcome back to SleepWise. Before you sink too far into the pillow, a gentle reminder to click the subscribe or follow button to access the latest episode. Completely free on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Now, let the room grow a little softer around you, as if the edges of the day are loosening their grip, and the air itself is learning how to be still. Tonight, we wander through something you carry everywhere, without ever needing to hold it in your hands. Memory. Not the sharp, demanding kind that turns life into a test, but the tender kind. The way a familiar streetlight can make you feel 10 years younger, or the way a song can return a whole season in a single breath. Memory is not a shelf in the mind, lined with neat jars and labels waiting to be opened. It is more like a living garden, tended, trimmed, sometimes overgrown, sometimes quietly renewed, always changing with weather you don't fully control. You may have noticed how the day can feel crowded, as if your thoughts are carrying too many small objects at once. Forgetting is one of the ways the brain makes space, so the important things can breathe. To forget is often to be protected from overload, to be spared the endless weight of every detail you've ever seen. What stays with you tends to be what was noticed, what was repeated, what arrived with feeling, or what helped you make sense of where you are. A glance held a moment longer, a name said twice, a laugh shared, a worry that tightened the chest. These leave deeper impressions than the ordinary blur. Even so, the mind is selective, and it edits with quiet purpose. Sometimes it keeps the shape of a moment, but swaps out the color or the order or the exact words until the memory becomes less like a recording and more like a story you've told yourself gently over time. And when you recall something, you do not simply retrieve it unchanged. You rebuild it piece by piece from scattered signals. And in that rebuilding, it can soften, sharpen, or shift the way moonlight changes the look of the same room. There is comfort in knowing this, that memory is not only storage, but care. It is the mind's way of keeping what matters close and letting what doesn't fade into the background like distant traffic. As we move deeper into the night, we'll look at why forgetting can be healthy, how the brain chooses what to keep, and how sleep becomes the quiet librarian, sorting, strengthening, and filing the day away with patient hands. For now, let your breathing slow and allow the simple truth. You don't have to remember anything tonight to be held by this story. When you think of memory, you might imagine a small vault somewhere inside you, a quiet room where everything is kept in perfect order. But the mind doesn't work like a locked cabinet. It works more like a town at night, with many lamps still glowing, each one holding a piece of what you've lived, a face, a place, a feeling, a habit, a name you once knew well. Different kinds of remembering live in different neighborhoods. There is the kind you can speak out loud, the story of what happened, the detail you can describe, the answer you can place into words. And there is the kind your body holds without asking, how to tie a shoelace, how to find your way through a familiar hallway in the dark, how your hands know the shape of a cup. Some memories arrive like photographs. Others arrive like weather. A certain scent can lift a whole mood into the room before you can even explain why. A tone of voice can bring back a person not as an image, but as a feeling in the chest. This is one of the gentle truths of memory. It is not a single thing. It is a chorus. And when you forget, it may not be that the song is gone. Only that one voice is quieter tonight. In the brain, remembering is often a matter of patterns. When you experience something, many small signals fire together. Light in your eyes, sound in your ears, the meaning you give it, the emotion it carries. Those signals don't gather into one spot like a souvenir placed on a shelf. They spread out, woven across networks like threads in a wide tapestry. To remember later is to find the pattern again, to let those threads pull together so the picture feels whole. This is why memory can be triggered by something tiny. One thread is enough to tug on the rest. A single street corner, a familiar laugh in a crowded room, the way rain sounds on a balcony. And because memory is a living pattern, it is also vulnerable to gentle change. Each time you recall something, the mind reassembles it. It fills small gaps with what seems most likely. It smooths sharp edges, or sometimes, if the feeling was strong, it brightens them. It isn't lying. It is doing what minds do, making a usable story from a million scattered pieces. So, if you can't remember every detail, let that be a kindness. Perfect recall would be a heavy thing to carry. The brain was built for meaning, not for endless storage. It keeps what helps you navigate, what helps you belong, what helps you learn. And tonight, as you rest, you can trust that even in forgetting, something wise is happening. A quiet tending, a soft sorting, a calm intelligence that knows when to hold on and when to let go. And if you ever wonder why some moments stay while others slip away, notice attention. What you truly notice, even for a breath, is more likely to be stitched into you. Deep inside, the hippocampus helps begin that stitching, like a quiet clerk receiving the day's notes, marking what seems worth keeping. As the night holds you, it can be soothing to remember this. Forgetting is not always the mind misplacing something. Often, forgetting is the mind making room. Imagine a desk after a long day. If every scrap of paper stayed exactly where it fell, soon there would be no space to write anything new. So the brain clears, compresses, and files. It keeps the headline, not every syllable. It keeps the lesson, not every background detail. There are times when memory fades simply because it is unused. A path through grass walked often becomes clear. A path ignored slowly softens back into the field. The same can happen with neural pathways. not because the mind is careless, but because energy is precious. The brain is always balancing, hold enough to guide you, release enough to stay flexible. Other times, forgetting comes from interference. New information can overlap with old, like two songs sharing the same melody. You reach for a name, and another name arrives first. You try to remember where you placed something, and 10 similar moments crowd the doorway at once. It can feel like failure, but it is often just traffic. And then there is the quiet kind of forgetting that protects you. Some memories are sharp, and the mind learns to soften their edges over time, not by erasing what happened, but by changing how it lands. The feeling becomes less urgent. The body stops bracing. The memory can still be there, but it no longer shouts. Even the simple stress of a busy day can make recall harder. When the nervous system is on alert, it favors the present moment, scanning, predicting, managing. In that state, details can slip through the fingers. So, if you've had days when your mind feels foggy, let that fog be understood. It is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that your system is tired. And there is another gentle truth. Many lost memories are not gone at all. They are just waiting for the right key. A certain smell, a familiar rhythm of footsteps, a line from a childhood book. Suddenly, the door opens. The mind had stored the pattern, but you needed the proper cue to find it again. That's why you can walk into a room and forget what you came for, then remember it the moment you step back into the hallway. The cue changed, and the memory returned. So tonight, we can treat forgetting with softness. It is not a moral issue. It is not laziness. It is a natural part of how minds stay light enough to live. And as you settle deeper, you can let your own thoughts drift without grabbing at them, trusting that what needs to stay will find its way back, and what doesn't can float on, like leaves moving quietly along a dark river. If a word sits on the tip of your tongue, it may be because the path is there, just faint. Patience, a different angle, a slower breath. Sometimes that is enough. And when you return to something, use it, repeat it, the path brightens again, and the grass begins to lie down that way. Now, let's move a little closer to how the brain decides what to keep, not with diagrams or heavy language, just with the feeling of it. During the day, your mind is busy doing two jobs at once. It is living the moment, and it is also quietly taking notes. Some notes are faint, as if written in pencil. Some are pressed in deeper, as if the page mattered. One reason is emotion. When something feels important, wonderful, frightening, tender, surprising, the brain often tags it. A small region, sometimes called the amygdala, helps with that tag, like a gentle highlighter. It doesn't decide what is good or bad. It simply signals, this matters. Pay attention. That tag can make a memory easier to return to later. Another reason is repetition. What you meet again and again becomes familiar, and familiarity is a kind of vote. The brain learns this pattern is useful, keep it close. And then there is meaning. When you connect something new to what you already know, it gains more hooks. A fact tied to a story, a face tied to a place, a lesson tied to a feeling. Hooks make retrieval easier because you can approach from many angles. Inside the brain, learning often involves tiny changes at the connections between cells. You can think of it like pathways becoming smoother. Signals travel with less resistance. What was once difficult becomes more automatic, and over time, some memories become less dependent on their first doorway. At first, the hippocampus is often deeply involved, helping hold the pattern together. But with time, repeated recall, and gentle reinforcement, the pattern can be distributed more widely, like a song learned so well you can hum it without thinking. This doesn't mean the memory becomes perfect. It means it becomes more stable, more available, more likely to appear when needed. And still, the brain is careful. It does not store everything at full resolution. It compresses. It saves the outline. It keeps the essence. This is why two people can remember the same event differently and both be sincere. Each mind stored what mattered most to it. So tonight, as you listen, imagine the mind as a patient editor, not trying to trap the past in amber, but trying to carry forward what helps you live. A small warmth of knowledge, a warning that keeps you safe, a line of kindness you want to repeat. This is memory at its gentlest, not a museum, but a tool for becoming. Some of what you store becomes habit, and habits are a special mercy. They free your attention for what is new. You don't have to relearn how to walk, or how to pour water, or how to reach for light. Your body remembers, so your mind can rest. And in quiet moments, you may notice how memory is always in motion, tightening certain threads, loosening others, adjusting the weave until it fits the life you're living now. And then there is sleep. Sleep is where the day finally stops asking anything of you, where the body lies down, the eyes close, and the mind, so busy all day, is allowed to do its quieter work. You might think sleep is simply a shutdown, but in many ways, it is a workshop. In the first stretches of night, the brain often leans into a deeper, slower rhythm. It is as if the whole system takes a long exhale. During these hours, memories that were fragile can be steadied. The brain seems to replay pieces of the day, small fragments, quick sequences, like a musician practicing a passage softly until it becomes smoother. Not every detail, just enough to strengthen the pattern. Later, in lighter phases of sleep, when dreams can be more vivid, the mind may do a different kind of work. It blends and explores. It links distant ideas. It tests emotions in a safer space. It can take something hard and make it less sharp, wrapping it in strange imagery until it becomes bearable. This is one reason a problem can feel clearer in the morning, or why a memory that felt tangled can feel simpler after a good night. Sleep is also a time for cleaning. All day, the brain's activity leaves behind chemical clutter, like footprints across a floor. During sleep, the system becomes better at clearing that clutter away, helping the brain feel more refreshed and ready. So, if your memory ever feels softer after poor rest, it makes sense. It is not only that you're tired, it is that the night's housekeeping and gentle filing were interrupted, and still, even imperfect sleep can help. A short nap can lift the fog. A few nights of steadier rest can make recall feel warmer, closer, less strained. Tonight, as you listen, you don't need to force any remembering. You can simply allow the idea that sleep and memory are partners, one gathering the day, the other shaping it. One living, one sorting, one collecting, one restoring. And as we continue, we'll keep moving through gentle truths, how memories change with time, why names slip away, why certain moments return so clearly, and how the mind, night after night, learns what to hold and what to let drift peacefully into the dark. You can picture it like this. In waking life, the hippocampus is a quick notepad, scribbling fast. The wider brain is the long bookshelf, sturdy and spacious, but slower to organize. Sleep is when the notepad and the bookshelf talk. Brief bursts of rhythm pass through the brain like soft waves, and with each wave, certain notes are copied, rewritten, and placed where they belong. Some memories are strengthened. Some are pared down to their meaning. Some are gently set aside. So when you wake and feel that quiet familiarity, like you've grown a little steadier without doing anything at all, that is often the night's work, done without effort, done in the dark. The world has a way of teaching you what memory is without ever naming it. You walk into a kitchen half asleep, and your hands already know where the glass is kept. You drive a familiar road and arrive almost surprised because you remember the last few turns only as a gentle blur. This is one of the mind's quiet talents. It can store a skill in the muscles and a story in the voice, all at once. Some memories are like facts you can point to. A birthday, a password, the name of a city. Others are like pathways, learned through practice, strengthened through repetition, made smoother each time you travel them. Scientists often describe these as different systems, not because the mind is divided, but because it uses different routes for different jobs. And you can sense those roots in your own life. If you try to explain how you keep your balance while walking, the words feel clumsy. But if you try to remember the last conversation you had, language steps forward easily. The brain is always choosing how to store something. Was it a movement, a rule, a scene, a sound, a lesson, a warning? And often it stores the same moment in more than one way. The sound of a friend's laughter becomes an emotional imprint. The location becomes a map. The meaning becomes a story you can tell. And the more pieces that are stored, the easier it can be to find the memory again. This is why memories attached to many senses can feel so vivid. The smell of warm bread can bring back a whole room. The texture of a sweater can summon a winter you thought you'd forgotten. In the background, the brain is binding pieces together, linking sight, sound, feeling, and meaning into a single pattern. If the links are strong, the pattern returns with less effort. If the links are faint, you may sense the memory nearby, but not quite reachable, like a word behind a closed door. And still, the mind is not trying to become a perfect archive. It is trying to become a good guide. It keeps what helps you move through the world. It lets go of what would slow you down. You can picture it as a set of gentle layers. At the surface are the memories you can describe. What you ate, what you heard, the small sequence of the day. Beneath that are the patterns you live by, the way you reach for kindness, the way you brace when a door slams, the way your body relaxes when it hears a familiar voice. So tonight, as we continue, let that be the atmosphere around everything we learn. Memory is not a test you pass or fail. It is a living process, shaped by use, shaped by rest, shaped by the gentle priorities of survival and meaning. And in that, there is something quietly comforting. To remember anything at all, you first have to notice it, not with strain, but with a small turning of attention, like a lamp being aimed. When attention is scattered, experiences can pass through you like light through fog. You were there, and yet later the details won't come. This is not because your brain was empty. It is because the moment was never fully encoded, never fully written into the weave. Encoding is a gentle word for a real process. The brain changing, even slightly, in response to what you experience. Tiny connections between cells can strengthen when they fire together. Over time, repeated patterns can become easier to activate. A thought, a face, a melody, each can leave a trace, but traces fade unless they are supported. Support can come from repetition, from emotion, from meaning, or from practice. Sometimes it comes from something as simple as saying a name out loud twice, or picturing it beside a familiar image. And then there is working memory, the small mental holding space you use to keep a phone number long enough to dial it, or to remember what you walked into the room to do. Working memory is short, fragile, easily interrupted. A new thought bumps it aside. A notification steals the stage. It is not a flaw. It is a design choice. The brain cannot hold everything at once, so it holds only a little and it swaps quickly. This is why you can feel something evaporate in real time. You had it, you were about to do it, and then the mind drifted. If you've ever felt annoyed by that, let this be soothing. Your brain is not careless. It is managing a crowded theater. Only a few actors can stand under the spotlight at once, and when the spotlight shifts, the scene changes. To move a memory from the brief holding space into something longer lasting often takes time and a little quiet. It can take replay, thinking it through again, practicing it, connecting it to something you already know. It can take sleep. It can take calm. So, if your days are busy, if your mind is constantly switching tasks, it makes sense that some things feel harder to remember. The mind is doing its best under noise. If you want a simple image, think of new experiences as footprints in fresh snow. Some are light and vanish in the next gust of wind. Some are deeper, made by heavier steps, and they last until morning. And some become paths because you walk them again and again and again until the route is unmistakable. Attention is the first step, repetition is the second, and rest is often the quiet third. The part that makes the path endure without you needing to push so hard. There is a curve to forgetting that many researchers have noticed for more than a century. It is not a punishment, just a pattern. When something is new, it can fade quickly at first, and then more slowly, like a ripple that spreads and softens across water. This is why a fact learned once can vanish by morning, while a habit practiced for weeks can stay for years. Time alone does not decide what remains. What matters is what returns, what is revisited, rehearsed, or reactivated. Each time you recall something, you give it another chance to strengthen. You also, quietly, reshape it. This is a tender and surprising truth. Remembering is not only retrieval, it is revision. When a memory is brought back into the light, it becomes flexible for a moment. Scientists call this reconsolidation, the idea that a recalled memory can be updated before it is stored again. That update can be helpful. It lets you learn new information. It lets you soften old fear. It lets you integrate change so the past and present can fit together. But it also means that memory can be influenced by context. If you recall an event while feeling anxious, the anxious tone can color the retelling. If you recall it while calm, the same event can feel gentler. The core may remain, but the edges shift. This is one reason why eyewitness memory can be imperfect, even when people are sincere. The mind is not a camera. It is a storyteller working with fragments. It uses expectations to fill gaps. It uses emotion to decide what mattered most. And sometimes, without intending to, it can add a detail that feels true simply because it fits. Tonight, we don't need to worry about that as a problem. We can hold it as something human. Your mind is not designed to trap reality in exactness. It is designed to make sense, to create continuity, to protect you from overload, and to help you predict what comes next. This is also why gentle repetition works best when it is spaced out. A small return tomorrow and another the day after can strengthen a memory more than cramming it all at once. It's as if the brain prefers a few calm visits rather than one frantic one. Each visit says, keep this. And each time, the pattern becomes easier to reawaken, like a candle that catches faster once the wick has learned the flame. So, when you forget a detail or when a memory feels hazy, you can meet that haze with kindness. And if a memory changes a little over time, it does not mean it was meaningless. It may simply mean that you are still living, and the mind is still weaving the past into the person you are becoming. As you rest, you can let your memories be what they are tonight. Soft shapes, gentle lights, not needing to be pinned down, only allowed to drift quietly through the dark. Sometimes the easiest way to find a memory is not to push harder. It is to change the doorway. Memory is often cue-dependent, which means it responds to hints, small keys that fit the right lock. A certain place can become a key. So can a smell, a song, a time of day. This is why walking back to where you had a thought can bring it back. The brain stores not only the information, but the context around it. It stores where you were, what you were doing, what you were feeling. These context details become handles. And when you grab the right handle, the memory can rise up quietly as if it was waiting. There is also something called state-dependent memory, where your internal state becomes part of the cue. When you are calm, you more easily access calm memories. When you are stressed, the mind may pull up threat-related information more quickly because that is what the body is preparing for. Again, not a flaw, a form of readiness. This is why stress can make recall feel narrower. The brain prioritizes what helps you respond, not what helps you reflect. If your mind has ever gone blank in a pressured moment, it may be because the body was shifting resources toward immediate survival. Breath shortens, muscles tighten, attention tunnels. The mind chooses speed over nuance. And yet, when you return to safety, memory often returns too. It can be like a tide. Inward, everything is focused. Outward, the world becomes wider again. This is one reason bedtime can be such a powerful place for remembering. The body begins to loosen. The nervous system turns down its volume. The spotlight moves away from urgency. And in that quieter space, thoughts that were locked away can float back gently without being forced. Even simple rituals can become cues. A particular mug in your hands can bring back the calm of a morning routine. A certain lamp switched on can invite focus. A familiar blanket can tell the nervous system it's safe now. These tiny cues are not magic, but they are real. The brain learning associations, then using them like soft shortcuts. So, as you lie here, let your own bedtime cue do its work. Let the body recognize the pattern. Let the mind follow, unhurried. And if a memory does not come, that's fine too. You do not need to retrieve anything tonight. You only need to rest inside the truth that your brain knows many paths, and it will find what it needs in its own calm time. Now let's return for a moment to the partnership between sleep and memory, because it is one of the quiet marvels happening in you every night, even when you feel you're doing nothing at all. While you sleep, the brain does not simply go dark. It shifts into rhythms that seem made for organizing. Researchers have observed that patterns of activity can replay, as if the brain is practicing what it learned, but in a calmer, faster language. This replay can help stabilize new memories. It can also help integrate them with older knowledge, so the new fits into the familiar like a puzzle piece, finding its shape. Sleep seems to support two gentle goals at once: strengthening and smoothing. Strengthening, so the useful patterns become easier to access. Smoothing, so the emotional sharpness of certain experiences can soften, making room for perspective. This doesn't mean sleep erases pain. It means sleep can help you carry it with less rawness. And there is another practical kindness. Good sleep supports attention the next day, and attention supports encoding. So sleep doesn't only help with filing the past, it helps with noticing the present. That is why tired days can feel slippery and rested days can feel more vivid. Your mind has more room. Your inner spotlight holds steadier. Some scientists describe this nighttime process as a kind of selection. Not everything from the day can be saved in full detail, so the brain keeps what seems useful, and it compresses the rest. Sometimes it keeps a skill. Sometimes it keeps a lesson. Sometimes it keeps a feeling, but changes its intensity so you can remember without being overwhelmed. Tonight, as you listen, you are already doing something helpful for memory, even if you never think about it again. You are giving your brain a slower pace. You are lowering the noise. You are letting the nervous system settle. And in that settling, the mind can begin its nighttime work, a quiet conversation between short-term notes and long-term shelves. Some things will be kept because they matter. Some things will be trimmed because they don't. Some feelings will be gently rebalanced, as if the mind is learning how to hold them more softly. So let sleep be what it is tonight. Not an empty space, but a caring one. A place where the brain restores itself, clears the day's clutter, and in its own wordless way decides what to carry forward into tomorrow. And when morning comes, you don't need to remember the sorting itself. You only need to feel a little lighter. There is another gentle way to think about memory, as a conversation between the outside world and your inner world. During the day, the outside world speaks quickly. It offers faces, numbers, errands, small surprises, unfinished sentences. Your mind listens, but it cannot hold every word with equal care. So it uses a filter. Some things pass through lightly, like wind through a curtain. Other things catch because they connect to something you already carry. A familiar name, a worry you've been rehearsing, a hope you've been protecting, a detail that seems useful for tomorrow. This is why you can remember a single line from a conversation, but not the rest. The brain is always asking, what is the point of this? What does it change? What does it predict? What does it teach? When something answers those questions, it tends to stay longer. And when something feels irrelevant, the mind releases it without apology. In quiet moments, you can notice this filter in action. Think of how easily you remember stories compared to lists. A story has shape. It has cause and effect. It has meaning. A list is often just a pile. Meaning is glue. The more meaning a memory has, the more places it can attach. It can attach to emotion, to a goal, to an identity, to a sense of belonging. And belonging is powerful. We tend to remember what makes us feel connected to people, because connection is safety. Long before we had calendars and notebooks, we had each other. Remembering who helped, who harmed, who shared, who vanished, mattered. So your brain is not simply storing information. It is storing relationships. Even when you think you're remembering a fact, you may also be remembering how that fact made you feel and what it meant in the room where you learned it. Tonight, you don't need to work at remembering anything, but you can let this idea settle like a warm stone in the palm. Your mind forgets, so it can keep what matters. Not perfectly, not always fairly, but with a quiet intention that has been shaped over a very long human history. And as you rest, you might notice that the memories rising now are not the loudest ones from your day, but the softer ones, the ones that carry meaning, even if they seem small. You can even feel it in the way the mind treats time. A day can hold hundreds of small moments, but later you remember only a handful, as if the mind chose a few lanterns to keep lit and let the rest dim without regret. It is choosing a manageable map, and sometimes what it keeps is not the event itself, but the direction it pointed you, a reminder, a warning, a small realization that changes how you see your own life. So, when you forget the trivial details, you are not losing the day. You are letting the day be distilled into what matters most. If you've ever tried to remember something and felt it slip away the harder you chased it, you're not alone. Memory often dislikes pressure. It returns more easily when the mind is spacious, when attention is gentle, when the body feels safe enough to wander. That's why the best way to find a forgotten word is sometimes to stop searching and let it arrive on its own, like a bird landing when you finally sit still. In the brain, recall is not a single switch. It is a cascade. A cue sparks a small pattern. The pattern spreads, and if the right network lights up, the memory becomes available. But if you flood the system with urgency, the cascade can break. The body tightens, the breath changes, the mind narrows. It is as if the room where memory lives becomes crowded with noise. So, One gentle practice is to widen the room, to take a slow breath, to soften the jaw, the forehead, the shoulders, to give the mind permission to take a longer route. Sometimes approaching from the side helps. Instead of asking, "What was the name?" you ask, "Where were we? What season was it? What did the place smell like? Who else was there?" These questions are not distractions. They are alternate doorways, and often the memory is waiting behind one of them. Another quiet truth: the brain can retrieve best when it has time. Quick tests of recall can feel harsh because they demand speed. But memory is often a slow tide. Given a few extra seconds, it can rise. So, if you ever feel frustrated with yourself, it can help to remember that your mind is not designed for constant performance. It is designed for life, for walking, noticing, connecting, learning in layers. And layers matter. Some memories are stored close to the surface, ready to be spoken. Others sit deeper, tied to older experiences, to the body, to long-held feelings. They may not come when you call, but they can come when you least expect it, in the middle of a shower or during a quiet drive or right as you begin to drift into sleep. Tonight is a doorway like that, a softer doorway. And as you listen, you can let your mind roam without effort, trusting that recall is not something you force, but something you invite, like opening a window and letting a familiar breeze find you. Some people notice this most clearly at night, when the mind finally has room to drift. A memory you couldn't touch all day appears in the half-light, not because you solved it, but because you stopped demanding it. The brain seems to like gentle conditions, steadier breathing, softer light. So, if you're listening tonight and a few stray memories begin to float up, you don't have to do anything with them. You can let them pass like clouds. And if you want to widen the doorway, anchor to something simple: the weight of the blanket, the cool air at the nostrils, the slow rise and fall of the chest. These anchors calm the body, and calm helps recall. Then, if a memory is ready, it will find you. You may notice that some memories stay bright for years, while others fade within days. This difference is not always about importance. Sometimes it is about rehearsal. A memory you revisit becomes more stable, because each revisit is a gentle reinforcement. It is like walking the path again, packing the earth down, making the route easier to follow. But rehearsal doesn't always mean intentional practice. It can be subtle. You replay a conversation because it bothered you. You revisit a moment because it made you proud. You retell a story because it makes someone laugh. Without realizing it, you are strengthening a pattern. There is also a kind of rehearsal that happens inside the night. As you sleep, certain experiences may be replayed in abbreviated form, not as full scenes, but as fragments of neural rhythm. Researchers have seen hints of this in animals navigating mazes, And in humans, learning new skills. After sleep, performance often improves even without more practice. It can feel like the brain kept working while you rested. And in a way, it did. This is especially true for skills. A piano passage, a new sport movement, a sequence of steps on a staircase. Sleep can help the body remember smoothly, so the next day the movement feels less effortful. For emotional memories, sleep can help in a different way. It can preserve the knowledge of what happened, while softening the sting of the feeling attached to it. Not always, and not perfectly, but often enough that mornings can feel slightly more bearable than midnight. This is why rest matters after hard days. It is not indulgence. It is repair. And there is another small kindness in the way memory works. It is often better at patterns than at isolated facts. You may forget the exact words someone said, but remember their tone. You may forget the date, but remember the season. You may forget a number, but remember the direction a trend was moving. The brain looks for regularities because regularities help you predict. So, when you learn, try to imagine your mind gathering not just details, but shapes. A map, not every pebble. A melody, not every vibration. Tonight, let that ease you. Even if you forget many details of your day, your mind is still learning its patterns, still becoming wiser in quiet ways. And sleep, patient and steady, is part of that wisdom. This is also why a new language word heard once can vanish, while a phrase you've spoken for years feels permanent. If you return to something with small gaps in between, the mind has to rebuild it each time, and that rebuilding strengthens the scaffolding. And sometimes the strongest rehearsal is care. You remember the details of a person because you notice them. The way they pause before speaking, the way their eyes soften when they're amused. Attention is a form of holding. So, the memories that last may be the ones that were held with warmth, not just with focus. Sometimes, forgetting feels like losing part of yourself, a name you should know, a memory you expected to be clear, a detail that used to come easily. When that happens, it can help to remember that memory is influenced by the whole body, not just the brain. Hydration, stress, illness, hormones, mood, medication, and especially sleep can all change how accessible your memories feel. It is not always about what is stored. It is often about what is reachable tonight in this particular state. Think of it like a library during a storm. The books are still there, but the lights may flicker, the doors may stick, the halls may be harder to navigate. When the storm passes, access improves. In everyday life, storms can be subtle. Too many tasks at once, too much scrolling, too little sunlight, a week of short nights, a nervous system that never fully comes down from alertness. All of these can make memory feel thin, not because the mind is failing, but because it is overworked. This is why kindness helps. Kindness lowers the pressure, and pressure is often what blocks recall. So, if you forget, Try to meet the moment the way you would meet a friend who is tired, with patience, with a soft voice inside, with the assumption that rest will help more than self-criticism. And there is something else. Many of the most precious memories are not stored as perfect scenes. They are stored as a sense of being held, a feeling of safety in someone's presence, a warmth of belonging in a particular place, a calm that returns when you hear a certain language or a certain kind of music. These are real memories, too. They live in the body as much as in the mind. They can guide you even when you cannot name them. Tonight, as you lie here, you can let your body remember calm. You can let your breath become a cue. Inhale slow and easy. Exhale long and unforced. And with each exhale, you can make the inner world a little more welcoming, a little more quiet. So whatever needs to surface can do so gently, and whatever needs to rest can settle back into the dark. There is also the simple fact that the brain is always sharing space with the present. It cannot fully open the album of the past while it is busy managing the now. So, if your life is full, if your days are noisy, if your responsibilities arrive in waves, it makes sense that some pages feel harder to find. That doesn't mean they are missing. It means the mind is prioritizing the moment in front of you. And perhaps the sweetest part is this. In rest, you give your brain permission to stop managing. You give it permission to wander. A wandering mind is not wasted. It is often a mind that is stitching, connecting, letting one thought brush against another until something settles. So tonight, let the wandering happen gently. If your thoughts drift, you can simply return to the sound of this voice, like returning to shore after a slow swim. No scolding, just returning. Now let's gather a few gentle facts and let them fall softly into place, like pebbles in a shallow stream. Memory is not stored in one single drawer. It is distributed, stitched across networks. New memories often begin with quick coordination, and over time they can become more widely embedded, especially when they are revisited. Forgetting happens for many reasons. Because a trace was never strongly formed, because it wasn't used, because new information interfered, because stress narrowed attention, because the brain chose to prioritize something else. Sleep helps in several ways at once. It supports attention the next day, it steadies new learning, it can strengthen skills, and it can help emotions feel less sharp while keeping the meaning intact. Recalling a memory can change it slightly because the act of remembering is also an act of rebuilding. And cues matter. Place, scent, sound, and internal state can all serve as keys that open the right doorway. None of these facts are meant to make you analyze yourself. They are here to soften your relationship with your own mind, to remind you that memory is not a moral scorecard. It is a living system shaped by biology and by the rhythm of your life. Tonight, You don't need to remember everything. You don't need to hold the day with a tight grip. If a thought comes, you can let it pass through without chasing it. If a memory visits, you can greet it like a quiet guest, then let it settle somewhere gentle. And if nothing comes at all, that is also perfectly fine. Because even in stillness, the mind is doing its quiet work, sorting, pruning, strengthening, clearing, a soft intelligence moving through the dark. And as we continue, we'll keep walking through this landscape with care, following how memories are shaped, why they drift, and how the night helps you carry only what you need. In the minutes ahead, we'll keep collecting these gentle truths one by one until they feel less like information and more like atmosphere. We'll notice how memory can be strengthened with soft repetition, how forgetting can be a relief, and how sleep becomes the quiet partner that helps the mind feel whole. And if you fall asleep along the way, that is not missing the story. That is completing it. Because the deepest lesson tonight is not one you need to recall. It is the feeling that your mind is allowed to rest. And that rest is part of how you remember. So settle in. Let the room stay dim. Let your breath keep slowing, like a tide withdrawing from the shore. And we'll continue calmly into the soft library of the night. And one more gentle fact. Memory and imagination share some of the same pathways. To remember is to rebuild. To imagine is to build in a new direction. In both, the mind arranges pieces into something you can feel. So, when dreams arrive tonight, let them be part of the same gentle craft. The brain practicing and making sense in its own quiet language. Tonight, let's linger with one of the strangest comforts about memory. It is allowed to be incomplete. You do not need a perfect record of your life in order to live it well. In fact, the mind is often healthiest when it can leave some doors gently closed, some details softly blurred, like a photograph taken in warm evening light. The brain is always balancing two needs. One is stability, the ability to recognize what is familiar, to know who you are, to carry lessons forward. The other is flexibility, the ability to update, to adapt, to learn new patterns, to let old ones loosen when they no longer serve you. If memory were too rigid, you would be trapped inside yesterday. If it were too loose, you would lose your footing. So the system stays in motion, tightening certain threads and releasing others, as if it's always adjusting the weave to fit the life you're living now. This is why some memories feel like they have moved. A childhood home may be remembered as larger than it was because it felt large. A difficult season may shrink in detail because the mind learned to protect you from its sharpness. A happy moment may glow brighter because it became a kind of refuge. These shifts are not always errors. They are often the mind choosing the version that is most usable, the one that helps you move forward with less strain. And sometimes, forgetting is simply the mind refusing to waste energy on what it does not need. The exact pattern of a stranger's shirt, the number on a door you'll never visit again, the tiny fragments that would crowd the inner room if they were all kept. So if you notice gaps, let them be gaps. A mind with no gaps would be heavy. A mind with gentle gaps can breathe. And there are small ways to befriend this system. If you want to remember something, give it a few quiet returns. Say it again tomorrow. Connect it to something you already know. Give it a place in a story. And then, just as important, give it rest. Because memory is not only built in effort, it is also built in silence, in the slow wash of sleep, in the spaces between moments where the brain can settle what it has gathered. Tonight, you are giving yourself those spaces. You are giving the mind a chance to set down what it doesn't need to carry. And as you settle deeper, you can trust the simple wisdom of it. Your memory is not trying to be flawless. It is trying to be kind. You might even notice that the memories you keep most easily are not always the big ones. Often they are the small ones that returned, the same evening walk, the same cup of tea, the same greeting at a doorway. The brain loves gentle repetition, the kind that feels like rhythm rather than work. And when you give it rhythm, it gives you continuity, a quiet sense of self that carries from one day to the next. So let your own routines be kind to you. Let them be soft cues that say, you are here, you are safe, you have done this before. There is a gentle question hidden inside all of this. What is a memory, really? Is it an image, a sentence, a feeling? Often it is all of these at once, layered like thin sheets of silk. And when you remember, you're not stepping into a sealed room. You are gathering pieces and letting them arrange themselves into a moment you can recognize. This is why memory can be influenced by what you expect. If you expect a room to be quiet, you may remember it as quieter than it was. If you expect a person to be harsh, you may notice the sharpness more than the softness. Expectation is a lens, and memory often stores not only what happened, but what you believed about what happened. That may sound unsettling, but it can also be soothing, because it means memory is not fixed. It can soften when you soften. It can become more spacious when you become more spacious. This is one of the quiet gifts of time. It changes the way you hold the past, not by erasing, but by reframing, by adding context, by letting later experiences join the earlier ones, like new pages being added to a book you thought was already finished. And sleep can be part of that reframing. In the dreaming mind, fragments can be rearranged. Emotions can be visited in symbolic form. A worry can appear as weather, then pass. A grief can appear as a long hallway, then open to light. Dreams are not always messages to decode. Sometimes they are simply the brain experimenting, practicing, blending, integrating, doing its nighttime work in a language of images. Even without vivid dreams, the sleeping brain moves through rhythms that support learning and release. Some nights, strengthened skills. Some nights, softened feelings. Some nights, clear mental clutter, leaving you simpler in the morning. None of this requires you to do anything. It is happening beneath you like a quiet river flowing under a bridge. So when you lie awake and feel your mind turning, you can meet it with gentleness. You can remind yourself, even if I don't feel it, the system knows what to do. And you can offer it one of the simplest supports, a calm breath, repeated. Inhale as if you are making room. Exhale as if you are letting the day fall away. That rhythm is itself a cue, telling the brain that it is safe to stop scanning, safe to begin sorting. And in that safety, memory becomes less like a struggle and more like a soft settling, a quiet arrangement of what matters. If you want an image for this, picture a snow globe. When you shake it, when you recall under pressure, everything swirls. But when you place it down, when you breathe and wait, the flakes settle into a pattern. Recall can feel like that, not a hunt, but a settling. And in the settling, the right pieces find each other again. So tonight, there is nothing to solve, only the permission to settle, only the quiet knowledge that sleep is one of the mind's oldest ways of returning to order, without force, without struggle. If we gather the whole landscape together, it begins to feel like a gentle cycle. First, a moment happens. Then attention decides whether it leaves a trace. Emotion may tag it if it feels important. Meaning may glue it if it connects to who you are. Repetition may reinforce it if you return to it. And sleep, patient and unhurried, may help place it more securely on the longer shelves. And alongside all of this, forgetting keeps the shelves from collapsing. Forgetting keeps the mind light enough to keep learning. It is easy to think of forgetting as loss, but often it is maintenance. Like pruning a tree so it can keep growing. Like clearing a path so you can keep walking. If your mind held everything with equal clarity, you would be exhausted by your own history. So it keeps the patterns, the lessons, the shapes, the meanings, and it lets countless details dissolve. Even the strongest memories change with time. Not always in what they mean, but in how they feel. A memory that once stung may become a quiet reminder. A memory that once glowed may become a soft warmth. And some memories return unexpectedly, not because you searched for them, but because the world offered the right key, a certain perfume, a familiar street, a phrase spoken in the same gentle rhythm. You might notice this on a random afternoon, a memory appearing in the mind like a small boat drifting into view. It can be surprising, but it can also be comforting. It reminds you that you are more than what you can call up on command. You are more than your conscious recall. You are shaped by what your body remembers, by what your nervous system learned, by the invisible patterns you've practiced for years. And in that sense, memory is not only about the past, it is about the present. It is about how you respond, how you recognize, how you choose. Tonight, you can let these ideas settle without effort. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to quiz yourself tomorrow. If you remember them, fine. If you don't, fine. The feeling is enough that your mind is designed to keep you oriented, to help you belong, to help you learn, and to help you rest. So, as we move toward the end of this hour, let the topic become less like a lesson and more like a lullaby, a gentle reassurance that forgetting can be wise, that remembering can be imperfect, and that sleep is quietly on your side, working in the dark with steady hands. If you ever worry that forgetting means something is wrong, let the thought soften. Most forgetting is ordinary. It is the mind choosing efficiency. It is the mind choosing rest. A good mind is not a mind that remembers everything. A good mind is a mind that can learn, adapt, recover, and find its way back to calm. So even when memory feels messy, you can remember this. The system is still working. Even in the fog, it is working quietly, faithfully, in ways you don't have to supervise. And now, as the room grows quieter, we can offer a few last gentle truths to carry into sleep. Your memory is not a single strength you either have or don't. It changes with context. It changes with stress. It changes with rest. A tired brain can feel like a dim hallway, not because the doors are gone, but because the lights are low. A rested brain can feel like morning, the same hallway, brighter, easier to navigate. If you want to support your memory, you don't need complicated strategies. You can begin with the simplest ones. Give your attention to one thing at a time. When you can, return to what matters in small, spaced moments. Attach new information to meaning, a story, an image, a reason you care. And protect your sleep when life allows it, because sleep is one of the quiet foundations that helps everything else feel steadier. But even if your sleep is imperfect, even if your days are messy, remember this: the brain is resilient. It does not require perfect conditions to keep doing its work. It adapts. It improvises. It finds ways to store what matters, even when the world is loud. And perhaps the softest truth is this: you are not your forgetfulness. Forgetting a name, misplacing a detail, losing a thread mid-sentence, these are not definitions of who you are. They are small weather patterns passing through a much larger sky. Beneath them, you still carry your values, your love, your learning, your instincts, your tenderness. Those are the deepest forms of memory. They live in how you show up, not in what you can recite. So tonight, let your mind be allowed to loosen. Let it stop gripping the day. Let it stop trying to perform. If a memory comes, let it come. If it doesn't, let it drift away. Your only task is to rest, to let the nervous system downshift, to let the breath become slower, as if it is counting you gently into stillness. In a moment, we will leave you with quiet. And as you enter sleep, may your mind do what it does best in the dark. Sort what matters, soften what hurts, strengthen what helps, and release what you no longer need to carry. There are nights when sleep comes easily, and nights when it arrives slowly. On the slow nights, treat wakefulness as part of rest. Lie down anyway. Dim the lights anyway. Let your body practice stillness, even if the mind is still arranging itself. Because the brain learns from conditions. It learns from darkness and quiet, from the repeated message. This is the place where we soften. And if your mind reaches for tomorrow, you can let tomorrow wait. Tell it softly, I will meet you later. For now, you are here. For now, you are resting. For now, it is enough to breathe. Choose one small anchor to think about, something ordinary that went okay today, and let it be enough. Then return to the breath, slow and steady, until the night takes you. Now the story can become a little quieter still. You have been listening, and your brain has been listening too, not only to words, but to rhythm, to steadiness, to the feeling of safety in a voice that does not demand anything from you. That feeling is part of memory. It teaches the body what calm is. It makes a small pathway that can be found again, night after night, like a familiar road under moonlight. So let your attention rest on something simple. The weight of the blanket over your shoulders, the softness beneath your head, the gentle rise and fall of your breathing. Each exhale can be a small release, letting the day slip a little farther away, like footsteps fading down a corridor. If your thoughts wander, that's all right. A wandering mind is often a mind beginning to dream. You don't have to follow any thought to its end. You can let them drift past like slow clouds and return to the steady tide of breath. And if you find yourself remembering a face, a place, a voice, a moment, let it be kind. Let it be unfinished. Let it be whatever it is tonight. Because memory is not asking you to hold it perfectly. It is simply passing through, doing its quiet work of shaping you. Some of what you heard tonight will settle on the long shelves. Some will dissolve by morning. Either way, you will be cared for by sleep. The brain will clear and soften, organize and restore in rhythms older than language, and you, here in the dark, can allow yourself to be carried. A little less effort, a little more ease, a little more trust in the unseen work happening inside you. If you like, you can imagine the mind as a dim room with a single candle. The candle does not chase the darkness away all at once. It simply holds a steady light, and slowly the shadows become less important. Your thoughts can be like that too. A steady attention, not bright, not harsh, just present. You can let the breath be the candle. Inhale, a small glow. Exhale, a soft widening of dark, comfortable space. And while you drift, your brain will keep doing its gentle work. It will strengthen a few useful threads. It will loosen a few tight knots. It will clear away what doesn't belong. It will make the inner world feel a little more spacious by morning. You do not need to witness this. You do not need to control it. You only need to be here for a moment and then to let yourself go. Let your eyelids be heavy. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. The world outside can wait. Inside, everything is quiet enough now, and you are safe to sleep. Let the last thing you do be easy. No counting, no effort, no solving. Just the quiet feeling of being allowed to stop. Good night.